Maya Collins pressed her face against the small window of the transport ship and watched as Kepler Prime grew larger in the darkness of space. The planet looked peaceful from up here, with its blue oceans and white clouds. But Maya knew that. Down on that world was the most dangerous military school in the galaxy. The Galactic Combat Academy only accepted the best warriors from every known species. Maya was one of just 12 humans who had made it this far. She still could not believe she was here. The transport ship, Starbound, shook as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Maya gripped her seat and tried to calm her nerves. Around her, the other new students did not seem worried at all. That was because most of them were not human. A Krillian warrior sat across from her, its body covered in hard shell-like armor that grew naturally from its skin. The creature was 7 feet tall, even while sitting down. Its claws clicked against the metal floor as it moved. Maya had read that Krillians could cut through steel with those claws. Behind the Krillian sat a Bruthan, a species that looked like a cross between a human and a bear. The Bruthan was so big that he needed 2 seats. His muscles were the size of tree trunks. Maya had heard that Bruthan could lift vehicles over their heads. Near the back of the ship, 3 voidlings floated in the air instead of sitting. They looked like ghosts made of silver light. Maya could not see their faces clearly, but she knew they could speak to each other with their minds. They probably already knew what she was thinking right now. First time seeing aliens up close? Asked the human sitting next to her. His name was Jake Morrison, and he was from Earth's military academy. He had kind eyes and a friendly smile that made Maya feel a little better. "Yeah," Maya said quietly. "They're all so much bigger than I thought they would be." Jake laughed softly. "Wait until you see the hexapods. They have 6 legs and can run as fast as a car. Makes you wonder what we humans are doing here." Maya wondered the same thing. She was 5 feet and 4 inches tall, which was not short for a human woman. But compared to these aliens, she felt tiny. She had trained hard on Earth to get here, but looking around the ship, she felt like a child who had wandered into a room full of giants. The ship landed with a bump that made everyone rock in their seats. Through the window, Maya could see the Combat Academy. It was a huge building made of black metal and glass. It looked like a fortress that could survive a war. "All new students prepare to leave the ship," announced the pilot over the speaker system. "Welcome to your new home for the next year. Try not to die." Maya was not sure if the pilot was joking. The students filed off the ship onto a landing pad. The air on Kepler Prime was thin and cold. Maya shivered and pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders. The alien students did not seem to notice the cold at all. Standing on the landing pad was the most frightening creature Maya had ever seen. It was clearly not human, with 4 arms and eyes like an insect. Scars covered its face and arms, telling stories of battles Maya could not imagine. This had to be one of the instructors. "I am Commander Vex," the creature said in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "I have been fighting wars since before most of your species learned to make fire. For the next year, I will try to turn you into warriors. Most of you will fail." Commander Vex walked down the line of new students, looking each one up and down. When he reached the Krillian, he nodded with approval. When he saw the Bruthan, he made a sound that might have been impressed. When he got to Maya, he stopped. "Human," he said, his insect eyes studying her. "You are very small." "Yes, sir," Maya replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "The last human who came here was twice your size. He lasted 3 weeks before he quit." Commander Vex moved on to Jake. "This one might last a month." Maya felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but she said nothing. Her grandmother had taught her that sometimes the best response was silence. Commander Vex led them into the academy. The hallways were wide and tall, built to accommodate species of all sizes. Maya had to take 2 steps for every 1 step the aliens took. Pictures on the walls showed famous graduates of the academy. Maya noticed that most of them were not human. "The Combat Academy has 3 rules," Commander Vex announced as they walked. "First, you will train every day until your body breaks or your mind snaps. Second, you will show respect to all species, even the ones you want to eat. Third, only the strong survive. The weak go home." They stopped at a large room filled with equipment Maya did not recognize. Alien students from older classes were training with weapons and machines. Maya watched a hexapod run on 6 legs across a wall like it was the floor. A voidling lifted heavy weights using only its mind. "Your first test begins now," Commander Vex said. "Physical assessment. We need to see what you can do before we decide if you are worth our time." The tests were harder than anything Maya had done on Earth. She had to run on a track while carrying weights. She had to climb walls that seemed impossible to climb. She had to fight against training robots that moved faster than her eyes could. Maya did her best, but she knew she was failing. The Carillion finished the running test in half the time it took her. The Bruthan lifted weights that she could not even move. The Voidlings solved puzzle tests with their minds while Maya was still reading the questions. When the tests were over, Maya was covered in sweat and breathing hard. Most of the alien students looked like they had barely tried. Jake was in better shape than Maya, but he was still obviously tired. "Results will be posted tomorrow," Commander Vex announced. "Those who scored in the bottom 20% will be sent home. Get some rest. Tomorrow the real training begins." That night, Maya lay in her small bed in the dormitory and stared at the ceiling. Through the walls, she could hear the alien students talking in their strange languages. Some of them were already making friends with each other. Maya felt very alone. Jake's bed was across the room from hers. "Hey Maya," he whispered in the darkness. "You okay?" "I don't think I belong here," Maya whispered back. "Did you see how strong they all are? How fast?" "I'm going to be sent home tomorrow." "Maybe," Jake said. "But maybe not. My dad used to tell me something. He said that being the biggest and strongest doesn't always make you the best fighter. Sometimes being small means you can do things the big guys can't." Maya wanted to believe him, but she had seen the test results. She was not fast enough, not strong enough, not smart enough. She was just a human girl who had somehow gotten lucky enough to be chosen for this school. But as she closed her eyes and tried to sleep, Maya thought about her grandmother. Grandma had been a Marine who fought in Earth's colonial wars. She was not the biggest or strongest soldier, but she had survived battles that killed bigger and stronger people. "It's not about being the toughest," Grandma used to say. "It's about being the smartest. It's about never giving up, even when everyone thinks you should." Maya made a promise to herself that night. She would not give up, no matter what the test. Results said tomorrow. She would find a way to prove that humans belonged in this school. She would show these aliens that being small did not mean being weak. Outside her window, the stars of Kepler Prime twinkled in the alien sky. Maya fell asleep planning how she would get better, how she would train harder, how she would prove everyone wrong. She had no idea that in just a few months, she would do something that would change how the entire galaxy thought about humans forever. 3 months had passed since Maya arrived at the Combat Academy, and she was still there. The test scores from her first day had put her in the bottom group, but somehow she had not been sent home. Commander Vex had kept her, though he never said why that every day was harder than the last. Maya woke up at dawn and trained until late at night. She ran until her legs felt like rubber. She lifted weights until her arms shook. She practiced fighting moves until she could do them in her sleep. Alien students were still faster and stronger than her. Zephyr, the Carillion warrior, could climb walls like a spider. His shell-like skin was so hard that practice weapons bounced off him. Thoric, the massive Bruthan, could punch through metal targets that Maya could barely dent. But Maya was learning things too. She was getting better at finding ways around problems instead of trying to power through them. When she could not lift a heavy weight, she found ways to move it using levers and pulleys. When she could not run as fast as the others, she learned to take shortcuts and save energy. Jake was doing better than Maya, but he was struggling too. The human students stuck together, helping each other with training and sharing tips. But Maya could see that some of the aliens were starting to see humans as weak links in the group. "Maybe you should try the support classes," suggested Instructor Kalen one day after Maya had failed another strength test. Kalen was a voidling, one of the ghostly silver beings who could float through the air. His voice sounded like wind. Chimes when he spoke. "Support classes?" Maya asked. "Communications, logistics, medical support. Important jobs, but not combat roles. You would be helping the real warriors instead of trying to be one yourself." Maya felt her face get hot with anger, but she kept her voice calm. "I want to stay in combat training, sir." Kellen's silver form flickered like he was annoyed. "Very well. But do not say I did not warn you." The next morning, Commander Vex called all the students to the main training hall. His forearms were crossed, and his insect eyes looked more serious than usual. "Today we begin the midterm evaluation," he announced. "This test will decide who stays and who goes home. Half of you will fail. The test takes place in the combat vault." Maya had heard whispers about the combat vault from older students. It was somewhere deep under the academy, where they kept the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. Students who went there came back different, if they came back at all. "The combat vault contains living specimens from across known space," Commander Vex continued. "Each creature is more deadly than the last. You will face them one by one, advancing through the levels until you succeed, surrender, or cannot continue." A hexapod student raised one of its 6 arms. "What happens if we get hurt?" "Medical teams are standing by," Commander Vex replied. "But injuries are part of the test. Pain teaches lessons that safety cannot. Those who quit or fail will be sent home immediately." Maya felt her stomach twist with fear. She had been training for 3 months, but she still felt weak compared to the other students. How could she survive creatures that were kept locked up for being too dangerous? "The test begins tomorrow," Commander Vex said. "Tonight, prepare yourselves. Some of you will not return." That evening, Maya sat in her room and cleaned her training gear. She had a simple combat knife, a set of light armor, and basic first aid supplies. Compared to the natural weapons and armor of the alien students, her equipment looked like toys. Jake came over and sat on her bed. "You scared?" he asked. "Terrified," Maya admitted. "I barely passed the regular tests. How am I supposed to survive against creatures that even the instructors are afraid of?" "Same way you've survived everything else here," Jake said. "By being smarter than everyone thinks you are." Maya looked at him with surprise. "What do you mean?" "I've been watching you train. You're not trying to be stronger than the aliens anymore. You're finding ways to beat them without using strength." That's pretty smart. Maya thought about this. It was true that she had stopped trying to match the aliens in raw power. Instead, she had been learning to use their strength against them. In sparring matches, she would let bigger opponents charge at her, then step aside and let them crash into walls. "But this is different," Maya said. "These are wild creatures, not training partners." "Maybe," Jake said. "But creatures follow patterns. 2. They have instincts and habits. If you can figure out those patterns, you might have a chance." The next morning came too soon. The students gathered in front of a large metal door that led down into the earth. Commander Vex stood beside it with several other instructors. Medical teams waited nearby with floating stretchers and healing equipment. "Students will enter the vault one at a time," Commander Vex announced. "The order has been decided by your current rankings. Highest scores go first." Maya's heart sank. She was ranked near the bottom of the class, which meant she would have to watch most of her classmates go before her. She would see who succeeded and who failed. She would have time to get more and more scared. Zephyr went first. The Krillian warrior walked through the metal door like he was going for a casual walk. Through speakers in the ceiling, the students could hear sounds from inside the vault. Roars, crashes, and the sound of Zephyr's claws striking something. Hard dot after 20 minutes, Zephyr emerged from the vault. His shell armor was cracked in several places, and green blood dripped from his claws. But he was walking, and he was smiling. Level 12, announced Commander Vex. Acceptable. Thorak went next. The massive Bruthan disappeared into the vault, and soon the sounds of battle echoed through the speakers. Metal crashed against metal. Something roared so loudly that the walls shook. When Thorak came out, he was carrying the head of something with too many teeth. Level 15, Commander Vex said. Well done. One by one, the students entered the vault. Some came out quickly, having given up after just a few levels. Others emerged bloody but victorious, having pushed themselves to their limits. A few had to be carried out by medical teams that Maya watched and learned. She noticed that the students who did best were not always the strongest ones. They were the ones who stayed calm and thought about their actions. The ones who rushed in using only strength and speed often came out worse than the ones who took their time. Finally, it was Maya's turn. She was one of the last students to go. Jake squeezed her shoulder as she walked toward the metal door. Remember what I said, he whispered. Be smarter than they think you are. Maya nodded and stepped through the door. It closed behind her with a heavy clang that echoed through the darkness. Emergency lights flickered on, showing her a narrow corridor that led deeper into the earth. The first level was a small room with metal walls. In the center of the room was a cage, and inside the cage was something that looked like a cross between a cat and a porcupine. It had long, sharp quills along its back and eyes that glowed yellow in the dim light. A voice spoke from speakers. In the ceiling, Level 1, Saber Spine, Poisonous Quills. Defeat the creature to advance. The cage door opened, and the Saber Spine stepped out. It was about the size of a large dog, but Maya could see the muscles rippling under its fur. The quills on its back were as long as her fingers and looked razor sharp. The creature circled her slowly, looking for an opening to attack. Maya had seen other students fight these creatures. Most of them had used speed or strength to overpower the saber spine quickly. But Maya was not fast enough or strong enough for that approach. Instead, she studied the creature's movements. It was aggressive, but not mindless. It was looking for the best moment to strike. Maya noticed that when it turned, the quills on. One side of its back were exposed while the others were protected. The saber spine lunged at her, trying to drive its quills into her chest. Maya dove to the side, rolling across the floor. The creature's quills stuck deep into the metal wall where she had been standing, while the saber spine struggled to pull its quills free. Maya struck. She hit it on the side of the head with the handle of her knife, stunning it. The creature collapsed, unconscious but not dead. Level 1 complete, announced the voice from the speakers. Advance to Level 2. Maya walked through another door into a larger room. This time, there were 2 creatures waiting for her. They looked like wolves, but their fur was black and seemed to absorb light. When they moved, they flickered in and out of sight like ghosts. Level 2, Shadow Stalkers. Can phase between dimensions. Defeat both creatures to advance. Maya watched the Shadow Stalkers pace around the room. They were testing her, trying to figure out how to attack. Every few seconds, one of them would flicker and disappear, then reappear somewhere else. Other students had struggled with these creatures because they were so hard to see and track. But Maya noticed something that the others had missed. Just before the Shadow Stalkers disappeared, their eyes would glow slightly brighter. It was a tiny detail, but it gave her a split second of warning. The first shadow stalker lunged at her from the left. Maya was ready for it, stepping aside and striking with her knife as it passed. The creature yelped and stumbled, but it was not badly hurt. The second shadow stalker tried to attack from behind while Maya was distracted, but she had been listening for the sound of its breathing. She spun around and caught it with a kick that sent it crashing into the wall. Maya stepped into level 3 and immediately felt the temperature drop. The room was cold and dark, with ice covering the walls. In the center of the room, something moved that did not look like any animal she had ever seen. It was made of what looked like blue light, floating in the air without wings or any way to support itself. The creature's body kept changing shape, sometimes looking like a snake, sometimes like a bird, sometimes like nothing at all. Level 3, Frost Wraith. Energy-based life form. Attacks with cold and fear. Defeat the creature to advance. The Frost Wraith drifted toward Maya, and she felt cold that went deeper than her skin. It was like the creature was pulling warmth right out of her body. Her breath came out in white clouds, and her fingers began to feel numb. Maya had watched other students fight energy creatures before. They usually tried to hit them with weapons or grab them with their hands. But how do you grab something made of light? The Frost Wraith circled around her, moving closer each time. Maya could feel fear creeping into her mind, but she pushed it away. Fear was just another weapon the creature was using against her. She noticed that wherever the Frost Wraith went, ice formed on the walls and floor. That meant it was real, even if it looked like light. It was affecting the physical world, which meant the physical world could affect it too. Maya picked up a piece of broken ice from the floor and threw it at the creature. The ice passed right through the Frost Wraith's body, but something interesting happened. For just a moment, the creature's light flickered and became dimmer. The cold was making Maya's movements slow and clumsy, but she had an idea. She began moving around the room, staying warm by staying active. The Frost Wraith followed her, leaving a trail of ice wherever it went. After several minutes of this, Maya had led the creature in circles around the entire room. Ice now covered every surface, making the walls and floor like mirrors. When the Frost Wraith's light hit the ice, it bounced back at the creature from all directions. The creature began to flicker more and more, as its own energy was reflected back at it. Soon it became so dim that Maya could barely see it. With one final flicker, the Frost Wraith faded away completely. Level 3 complete. Advance to Level 4. Maya walked through the next door, feeling proud of herself. She had defeated an energy creature without even touching it. But her pride faded when she saw what was waiting for her on Level 4. The room was full of creatures that looked like giant spiders, but with wings. There were at least 20 of them, hanging from the ceiling and crawling on the walls. Their eyes glowed red in the darkness, and Maya could hear the sound of their wings buzzing. Level 4, Crystal Wasps, Swarm Hunters, Poisonous Stingers. Defeat the swarm to advance. One of the crystal wasps flew down toward Maya, its stinger gleaming like a knife. She rolled to the side just as it struck the floor where she had been standing. The stinger went right through the metal floor like it was made of paper. More wasps began flying toward her. Maya ran across the room, dodging and weaving as the creatures tried to surround her. She could not fight 20 of them at once. She needed to find another way. Maya noticed that the crystal wasps were very good at flying, but they had trouble turning quickly. When one of them dove at her, it had to fly in a straight line. She used this against them, leading them into the walls and each other, but there were still too many of them. Maya was getting tired, and sooner or later one of those stingers would find its target. She needed to think of something else. Looking around the room, Maya saw that there were vents in the ceiling where air was being pumped in. The crystal wasps were staying away from those vents. Maybe they did not like strong air currents. Maya climbed up the wall using handholds that were built into the metal. The crystal wasps followed her, but as she got closer to the ceiling vents, they began to hang back. The air currents from the vents were making it hard for them to fly straight. Maya pulled herself up to one of the vents and began working on the cover. The screws were old and rusty, but she managed to get them loose with her knife. When the vent cover came off, a powerful blast of air shot out. The air current was so strong that it blew the crystal wasps away from Maya like leaves in a storm. They tried to fly back toward her, but the wind was too powerful. Soon they gave up and retreated to the far end of the room. Level 4 complete. Advance to Level 5. Maya climbed down from the ceiling and walked to the next door. She was starting to understand something important. Every creature in the combat vault was dangerous, but they all had weaknesses. The trick was finding those weaknesses and using them. Level 5 contained a creature that looked like a giant turtle, but with a shell made of metal instead of bone. It was slow-moving, but Maya could see that its shell was so thick that her knife would never cut through it. Level 5. Iron Shell. Armored defense creature. Nearly indestructible shell. Defeat the creature to advance. The iron shell moved toward Maya slowly, its massive feet making the floor shake with each step. When it got close enough, it snapped at her with jaws that could bite through steel. Maya jumped back just in time. Other students had probably tried to find weak spots in the creature's armor or attack it from above. But Maya noticed something different. The iron shell's eyes were not protected by armor. They were small and hard to hit, but they were the only soft part of the creature she could see. Maya began moving around the iron shell in circles, staying just out of reach of its jaws. The creature was slow, so it had trouble turning to follow her. Every time it tried to turn, Maya was already moving to its blind spot. After several minutes of this, the iron shell became dizzy from turning in circles. It stopped moving and shook its head, trying to clear its vision. That was when Maya struck, throwing her knife with perfect aim at one of its eyes. The creature roared with pain and pulled its head back into its shell. But now it could not see Maya at all. She climbed onto its back and began working on the joints, where the shell connected to the creature's legs. The joints were not as heavily armored as the rest of the shell. Maya used her knife to damage the connections until the iron shell could not move its legs properly. Unable to walk or see, the creature gave up and retreated completely into its shell. Level 5 complete. Advance to Level 6. Maya walked through the next door and found herself in a room that seemed to be full of mirrors. But as she looked closer, she realized they were not mirrors at all. They were windows, and behind each window was another room with another creature waiting for her. Level 6, Mirror Maze, multiple threats. Find the correct path. Defeat only the real threat to advance. Maya studied the windows carefully. Most of them showed creatures that looked similar to ones she had already fought. But one window showed something different. Behind it was a creature that looked like a human, but with skin that changed colors like a chameleon. Maya realized that this was a test of observation, not combat. The other creatures were probably illusions or recordings. The real challenge was finding the actual threat among all the fake ones. She walked up to the window with the color-changing creature and touched the glass. It dissolved like water, allowing her to step through into the next room. The creature was waiting for her. It looked exactly like Maya, but its skin kept shifting through different colors and patterns. When it spoke, it used Maya's own voice. Level 6. Shapeshifter. Mimics opponents. Copies abilities and appearance. Defeat your reflection to advance. The shapeshifter moved exactly like Maya, copying her stance and movements perfectly. When Maya drew her knife, the creature produced an identical weapon. When Maya stepped to the left, the creature stepped to the right. Like they were looking in a mirror, Maya realized that trying to fight this creature would be like fighting herself, but she had one advantage. She knew things about herself that the creature could not copy just by looking at her. Maya began reciting her grandmother's favorite poem, one that she had memorized as a child. The shapeshifter tried to copy the words, but it could not remember the lines that Maya had not said. Yet, soon the creature became confused and its form began to flicker. While the shapeshifter was distracted, Maya struck with her knife. But instead of trying to hurt the creature, she cut her own hand, drawing blood. The shapeshifter copied this action, cutting its own hand, but Maya's blood was red, while the creature's blood was silver. The shapeshifter looked at its silver blood in confusion, and that moment of doubt broke its concentration completely. Its form dissolved like smoke. Level 6 complete. Advanced to level 7. Maya wrapped her cut hand with cloth from her sleeve and walked to the next door. She was deeper in the combat vault than most students ever went. Her body was tired and sore, but her mind felt sharp and focused. She had learned something important about herself in these fights. She was not strong or fast, but she was good at solving problems. Every creature was like a puzzle that needed to be figured out. Level 7 was different from the others. The room was completely dark, and Maya could not see anything at all. She could hear something moving in the darkness, but she could not tell what it was or where it was coming from. Level 7, Void Hunter, hunts by sound and movement. Cannot be seen in darkness. Defeat the unseen threat to advance. Maya walked through level after level, facing creatures that seemed impossible to defeat. There was a beast made of living fire that she put out by flooding the room with water from broken pipes. There was a creature that could walk through walls, which she trapped by leading it into a room lined with a special metal that blocked its powers. Each victory taught her something new about fighting and about herself. She was not winning because she was strong or fast. She was winning because she could see things that others missed and think of solutions that others never tried. By the time Maya reached level 25, she had been in the combat vault for over 6 hours. Her clothes were torn and dirty. Small cuts and bruises covered her arms and face. But her eyes were still bright and focused. In the observation room high above, every instructor was now watching the monitors. Word had spread through the academy that something impossible was happening. A human student was deeper in the combat vault than anyone had ever gone before. "This cannot be real," whispered Dr. Chen, the academy's medical officer. "Level 25 contains creatures that we use to test full military squads, not individual students." Commander Vex said nothing, but his 4 hands gripped the railing so tightly that the metal was starting to bend. He had seen many warriors in his long life, but never anything like this. "Should we stop her?" asked Instructor Kalen. "The creatures beyond this point are extremely dangerous." "No," Commander Vex replied. "She has earned the right to continue, but prepare the emergency extraction team. If she gets in trouble, we need to be ready to pull her out instantly." Maya stood before the door to level 26, breathing heavily. Through the thick metal, she could hear something moving on the other side. Whatever was in there sounded big. Very big. The door slid open, and Maya stepped into a room that was larger than any she had seen before. The ceiling was so high that she could not see it in the darkness above. Emergency lights cast long shadows across the floor, making everything look strange and frightening. In the center of the room stood a creature that made Maya's blood run cold. It was 12 feet tall and covered in armor-like skin that looked like it could stop bullets. Its 6 eyes glowed red in the darkness, and each of its 4 arms ended in claws that were longer than Maya's entire hand. Level 26, Apex Predator, origin unknown. No recorded defeats. Highly intelligent. Extremely dangerous. Defeat the ultimate challenge to complete the vault. Maya stared up at the massive creature, and it stared back at her. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The apex predator tilted its huge head to one side, Studying this small human who had somehow made it to its lair, Maya had read about this creature in the Academy's files. Military scientists believed it came from a planet where everything was constantly at war. It had evolved to be the perfect killer, with armor that could not be pierced, strength that could crush vehicles, and intelligence that let it learn from every battle. The creature had been captured during a military operation that cost the lives of 50 soldiers. Since then, it had been kept in the deepest part of the combat vault. Hundreds of warriors had faced it over the years. None had ever won. Maya walked slowly around the edge of the room, keeping her distance from the creature. The apex predator turned to follow her movement, but it did not attack. It was being careful, studying her just as she was studying it. The creature's 6 eyes gave it perfect vision in all directions. Its 4 arms meant it could attack and defend at the same time. Its massive size and strength made it nearly unstoppable in direct combat. Maya could see why no one had ever defeated it. But Maya had learned something important during her journey through the vault. Every creature, no matter how perfect it seemed, had weaknesses. The trick was finding them. She watched the way the apex predator moved. It was graceful despite its size, but there was something odd about how it placed its feet. The creature favored its right side slightly, putting more weight on its right legs than its left. Maya also noticed that the creature's armor was not the same thickness everywhere. The plates overlapped like scales on a fish, and there were tiny gaps between them where softer skin showed through. The gaps were too small for normal weapons to reach, but Maya's small training knife might be able to find them. The apex predator grew tired of waiting and began moving toward Maya. Its steps made the floor shake, and Maya could hear the sound of its breathing like a large machine. She had seen creatures that were faster and creatures that were stronger, but nothing that combined so many deadly abilities in one body. Maya began running around the room, staying close to the walls. The apex predator followed her, moving with surprising speed for something so large. But Maya noticed that when it turned to chase her, it had to slow down slightly. Its massive size made quick direction changes difficult. The creature tried to corner Maya against one of the walls, using its 4 arms to block her escape routes. But Maya dropped to the ground and rolled between its legs, coming up behind it. The apex predator spun around to face her, but Maya was already moving again. For several minutes, they played this deadly game of cat and mouse. Maya would dart in close, force the creature to react, then dance away before it could grab her. She was learning the rhythm of its movements, the timing of its attacks. The apex predator was getting frustrated. It was used to opponents who tried to match its strength or speed. Maya's tactics were unlike anything it had faced before. She was not trying to hurt it or overpower it. She was just staying alive and learning. Maya noticed that when the creature became angry, it made small mistakes. It would swing its claws a little too wide, or step a little too far forward. These mistakes only lasted for split seconds, but they created tiny opportunities. The creature lunged at Maya with all 4 arms, trying to grab her in a crushing embrace. Maya dove to the side, but instead of rolling away, she grabbed onto one of the creature's massive arms. Her weight was nothing to the apex predator, but her movement threw off its balance slightly. As the creature tried to shake her off, Maya climbed higher up its arm. The apex predator used its other arms to try to grab her, but she was moving too quickly and staying too close to its body. It was like trying to swat a fly that was crawling on your own skin. Maya reached the creature's shoulder and could see one of the gaps in its armor up close. The gap was barely visible, just a thin line where 2 armor plates met. But through that gap, she could see softer skin underneath. The apex predator finally managed to grab Maya with one of its free hands. Its claws wrapped around her waist, and she could feel them starting to squeeze. In a few seconds, those claws would crush her like an eggshell. But Maya was ready for this. She had her training knife in her hand, and she drove it into the gap in the creature's armor with all her strength. The small blade slipped between the armor plates and found the soft flesh beneath. The apex predator roared with pain and surprise. It had never been hurt before, not in all its years of fighting. It dropped Maya and staggered backward, trying to understand what had happened. Maya hit the ground hard, but rolled to her feet immediately. She could see that her knife had drawn blood, but the wound was small. The creature was hurt, but far from defeated. If anything, the pain had made it even more dangerous that the apex predator's 6 eyes focused on Maya with new respect. This tiny human had done something that armies of trained soldiers could not do. She had found a way to hurt it. The creature's posture changed, becoming more careful and defensive. Maya realized that she had used up her element of surprise. The creature would not underestimate her again. It would be ready for her tricks and tactics. She needed to find another weakness, and she needed to find it quickly. The creature began moving toward her again, but this time it was different. It moved more slowly, testing each step. Its arms stayed close to its body, protecting the gaps in its armor. It had learned from their first exchange and adapted its strategy. Maya backed away, her mind racing. She had hurt the creature once, but that might have been her only chance. The apex predator was too smart to fall for the same trick twice. She needed a completely different approach. Looking around the room, Maya noticed something she had missed before. The walls were covered with scratch marks from previous battles. Some of the marks were old and faded, but others looked newer. The pattern of the scratches told a story about how other warriors had tried and failed to defeat this creature. Most of the scratch marks were high up on the walls, showing that other fighters had tried to attack from above. Some marks were concentrated near the corners, where warriors had been trapped and fought desperately to escape. But Maya noticed one area of the wall that had very few marks at all. It was a section of wall directly behind where the creature had been standing when she first entered the room. The lack of scratch marks meant that other warriors had never been able to get the apex predator into that position. There might be something special about that spot. Maya began moving toward that section of wall, but she had to be careful. The apex predator was watching her closely now, ready to counter any move she made. She could not just run there directly. She needed to make the creature think she was trying something else. Maya feinted toward the left side of the room, then quickly changed direction toward the right. 9 seconds. Maya had 9 seconds to do what no warrior in the galaxy had ever done before. The apex predator stumbled backward. Its 6 eyes squeezed shut against the bright emergency lights. Its 4 massive arms waved in front of its face, trying to block the harsh glare. For the first time since Maya had entered the room, the creature looked confused and off balance. Maya's mind worked faster than it ever had before. She had spent the entire fight studying the creature, learning its movements, finding its weaknesses. Now all of that knowledge had to come together in less than 10 seconds. 8 seconds left. Maya spotted the exact weakness she needed. When the creature raised its arms to shield its eyes, it exposed the softer skin at the base of its neck. But, more importantly, it also exposed a cluster of nerve points that Maya had learned about in her anatomy classes back on Earth. 7 seconds left. Maya ran toward the blinded creature, her small training knife gripped tightly in her hand. The apex predator heard her coming and swung one massive arm downward, trying to crush her even though it could not see exactly where she was. 6 seconds left. Maya slid under the creature's swinging arm, her small size allowing her to pass through a gap that would have caught any larger opponent. She came up right next to the creature's left leg, close enough to touch its armored skin. 5 seconds left. Instead of trying to climb up the creature's body like she had before, Maya did something different. She used her knife to cut through a small tendon at the back of the creature's ankle. It was a tiny cut, barely visible, but it hit exactly the right spot. 4 seconds left. The cut tendon made the apex predator's left leg buckle slightly. The creature was so massive that even a small change in its balance had big effects. It began to tip forward, trying to catch itself with its arms. 3 seconds left. As the creature leaned forward to regain its balance, the back of its neck came down to where Maya could reach it. She jumped up and pressed her knife against a specific point at the base of the creature's skull, right where several major nerves came together. 2 seconds left. Maya did not stab deeply. Instead, she applied pressure to the nerve cluster in exactly the way her grandmother had taught her during their medical training sessions. It was a technique used by field medics to quickly calm panicked patients, but Maya realized it might work on other creatures too. 1 second left. The pressure on the nerve cluster sent a signal through the apex predator's nervous system. The creature's body went limp as its brain received a message that it was time to sleep. The massive beast collapsed to the floor of the chamber, unconscious but still breathing steadily. Time was up. Maya stood over the fallen apex predator, breathing hard. She had done it. In exactly 9 seconds, she had defeated the most dangerous creature in the known galaxy. Not by killing it, but by understanding it well enough to find the one weakness that no one else had ever discovered. The emergency lights continued to flood the chamber with bright white light. In the sudden silence, Maya could hear her own heartbeat and the steady breathing of the unconscious creature. She looked up at the cameras that she knew were watching from the observation room. "Test complete," she said quietly. In the observation room far above, absolute silence filled the space. Commander Vex stared at the monitors with all 4 of his hands pressed against the viewing window. Instructor Kalen's silver form flickered so rapidly that he looked like a strobe light. Dr. Chun had dropped her medical scanner and was staring at the screens with her mouth hanging open. "Did she just ... Dr. Chun whispered. "She defeated the apex predator," Commander Vex said, his voice filled with amazement. "In 9 seconds. How is that possible?" asked Instructor Kalen. "Military units with advanced weapons have tried and failed. How did one human student succeed where entire armies could not?" Commander Vex replayed the final 9 seconds on the monitors, watching Maya's movements in slow motion. "Look at what she did. She did not try to match the creature's strength. She found its pressure points and used them like a surgeon." "But how did she know where those pressure points were?" Dr. Chun asked. "Human medical training," Commander Vex realized. She applied knowledge about nerve clusters and anatomy. She treated the apex predator like a patient instead of an enemy. The emergency extraction team was already on their way down to the chamber, but Commander Vex stopped them with a gesture. "Wait, let her walk out on her own. She has earned that right." Back in the chamber, Maya knelt down next to the unconscious apex predator and checked its pulse. The creature was sleeping peacefully, its massive chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. Maya had been very careful not to cause any permanent damage. She stood up and walked toward the exit door, her legs shaky from exhaustion and adrenaline. Every muscle in her body ached, and she had cuts and bruises from head to toe. But she was smiling. The door to the chamber opened, and Maya stepped through into a corridor filled with instructors and medical staff. They all stared at her in silence, as if they could not believe what they were seeing. Commander Vex approached her, his 4 arms crossed and his insect eyes studying her carefully. "Student Collins," he said formally. "Yes, sir," Maya replied, standing as straight as she could despite her exhaustion. "You have just accomplished something that military historians will study for generations. How do you feel?" Maya thought about the question for a moment. "Tired, sir, and hungry. I have been in the vault for 8 hours. A few of the instructors chuckled at her practical response. Commander Vex's mandibles clicked together in what Maya had learned was the Altarian equivalent of a smile. "Medical check first," Dr. Chun said, stepping forward with her scanner, "then food and rest. Then we need to understand exactly how you did what you just did." As the medical team looked her over, Maya saw Jake and the other human students running down the corridor toward her. Jake's face was filled with excitement and pride. "Maya," he shouted, "you did it! You actually did it!" "Did what?" Maya asked, though she was still smiling. "You went deeper into the combat vault than anyone in the Conde Academy's history," Jake explained. "You defeated creatures that stopped entire military units. And you beat the apex predator." Maya looked around at all the faces watching her. Alien students who had dismissed her as weak were now looking at her with respect and amazement. Instructors who had suggested she transfer to support classes were shaking their heads in disbelief. "I just solved puzzles," Maya said simply. "Every creature was like a problem that needed to be figured out. Once I understood what they could do and how they moved, I could find ways to beat them. But the apex predator has never been beaten." "Before," said Zephyr, the Krillian warrior. "His shell-like armor was scarred from his own attempt in the vault. How did you find its weakness when no one else could?" Maya thought about how to explain it. Everyone else tried to fight it like a monster. But it is really just a very large, very dangerous animal. All animals have pressure points and nerve clusters. I just had to find the right ones and know how to use them." Commander Vex listened to this explanation with growing understanding. "You treated it like a medical case instead of a combat situation." "Yes, sir. My grandmother taught me battlefield medicine. She said that understanding how bodies work can save lives. I guess it can also win fights." 3 days later, Maya Collins stood in the Academy's main hall wearing the black uniform of the Elite Guard. She was the first human to ever receive this honor, and she had earned it by completing the combat vault in a way that no one thought possible. The graduation ceremony was attended by military officials from across the galaxy. News of Maya's achievement had spread to every inhabited world, changing how people thought about human capabilities. As Commander Vex placed the Elite Guard insignia on Maya's uniform, he spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "Student Collins has shown us that strength comes in many forms. Sometimes the greatest weapon is not the biggest gun or the sharpest claw. Sometimes it is a mind that refuses to give up and a heart that finds solutions where others see only problems." Maya looked out at the audience and saw Jake and her other human classmates cheering for her. She saw alien students who now looked at humans with new respect. She saw instructors who understood that they had learned something important about what it meant to be a warrior. After the ceremony, Maya was approached by officers from elite military units across the galaxy. They all wanted to recruit her, to learn from her, to understand how she had accomplished the impossible, but Maya had already made her decision. She would stay at the academy as an instructor, teaching other students that being underestimated could be the greatest advantage of all. She would show them that sometimes the best way to win a fight was not to overpower your enemy, but to understand them better than they understood themselves. Years later, when military historians wrote about the day that changed how the galaxy viewed human potential, they would call it many things. Some called it the greatest upset in combat sports history. Others called it a revolution in military thinking. But Maya always thought of it simply as the day she proved her grandmother right. It was not about being the toughest or the strongest. It was about being the smartest. It was about never giving up, even when everyone thought you should.